Have you ever wondered about the true identity of Jesus beyond the familiar images we've all seen? Could it be that his heritage connects more deeply with Africa than many of us have been led to believe? For centuries, art and media have shown us a fair-skinned, blue-eyed Jesus. But what if that portrayal misses an essential part of his story? Join us as we explore the often overlooked African roots of Jesus, a story with profound implications for our understanding of race, faith, and history. Stay with us until the end, as we uncover why this forgotten narrative matters so much, especially today. The story of Jesus Christ is one that has transcended time, borders, and cultures. His teachings have left a profound impact on human civilization, shaping societies and inspiring billions. However, one crucial aspect of Jesus' identity has often been omitted or obscured as African heritage. While this idea may feel radical to some, the notion that Jesus may have had African lineage is not new. Instead, it is a buried truth, hidden by centuries of cultural, theological, and even political suppression. The image of Jesus as a white man, typically depicted with fair skin and blue eyes in Western art and iconography, is a portrayal far removed from the historical reality of who he likely was. Understanding Jesus' African heritage challenges entrenched racial narratives that have permeated Christian history and Western thought. By exploring his true background, we reclaim a more inclusive image of Jesus that resonates across cultures, identities, and races. In today's world, where conversations about racial justice, identity, and inclusion are at the forefront, revisiting the African identity of Jesus takes on heightened significance. Tracing the African roots of Jesus, rediscovering a forgotten legacy to understand the African connections to Jesus. It's essential to examine the historical and biblical context of his life. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, a city in Judah, part of the Roman Empire located at a crossroads where Africa, Asia, and Europe met. This region was a vibrant melting pot of ethnicities and cultures, defying the racial categories familiar to us today. Ancient societies often embraced diverse ethnic identities, and this context helps us explore Jesus' potential African connections. One of the clearest links between Jesus and Africa appears in the Gospel of Matthew, where his family fled to Egypt to escape King Herod's deadly edict. After a dream warned Joseph, he took Mary and the infant Jesus to Egypt for refuge. Egypt, a North African country, had a long-standing history as a sanctuary for Jewish people during times of persecution, including the Babylonian exile. This flight into Egypt is a symbolic moment that reflects Jesus' early connection to Africa. The fact that Egypt was chosen as a place of safety for the Holy Family underscores the African ties within the life and identity of Jesus. The population of Egypt was composed of people with dark skin and African descent, and for Mary, Joseph, and Jesus to blend into Egyptian society suggests they may have shared similar features with the local population. Had they appeared distinctly different, they might have attracted unwanted attention in a time of heightened danger. This subtle but significant detail hints at the likelihood that Jesus and his family bore more African traits than the typical whitewashed portrayals found in Western art. This reimagined view aligns more closely with the ancient, ethnically diverse setting of the Middle East and North Africa. Depictions of Jesus in early African Christian art, African Christian communities, such as the Coptic Christians of Egypt, one of the oldest Christian communities in the world, consistently depicted Jesus in ways that mirrored their own ethnic appearance. In early Christian art from regions like Egypt and Ethiopia, Jesus is portrayed with dark skin, woolly hair, and African features. These communities had no need to portray Jesus as European. Instead, they represented him in a way that felt culturally and ethnically authentic. Such depictions not only speak to the African connections within early Christianity, but also highlight the deep-rooted African heritage that has been part of the faith since its earliest days. Ethiopia, another African nation with an ancient Christian tradition dating back to the 4th century, also holds a long-standing history of depicting Jesus with African characteristics. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church maintains the belief that Jesus shared African ancestry, and this portrayal has shaped the faith of Ethiopian Christians for generations. By embracing a Jesus who looks like them, Ethiopian Christians experience a more profound spiritual connection and validation of their own cultural identity. For these communities, Jesus is not merely a religious figure, but a symbol that validates their ethnic and cultural identity. The role of Simon of Cyrene, African ties in Jesus' last journey. Another significant African figure in the life of Jesus is Simon of Cyrene, a man from Cyrene, modern-day Libya, in North Africa, who helped Jesus carry his cross on the way to Golgotha. The Gospels describe Simon as coming to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. His presence at this critical moment signifies the African influence and connection within the larger narrative of Jesus' life and death. Simon's role is a reminder of the diverse community that existed around Jesus, and it reflects the long-standing relationship between African and Jewish communities during this period. Though these accounts alone do not confirm a direct African lineage for Jesus, they challenge the Eurocentric depictions that have long dominated Western Christianity. From Renaissance art to modern media, Jesus has often been shown as a white man, a portrayal that has erased the ethnic diversity surrounding his life and context. These European-centric images have served as a tool of colonial dominance, promoting narratives that align with European cultural ideals while disregarding Jesus' ethnic roots. The deliberate erasure of Jesus' African identity. The historical erasure of Jesus' African heritage was not an accident. It was a calculated move driven by cultural, theological, and political motivations. As Christianity spread through Europe, it became closely intertwined with imperial ambitions. European rulers in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance used a whitewashed image of Jesus to bolster their own power. A white Jesus suited the political agenda of European rulers and reinforced ideas of white superiority, aligning with a worldview that placed European culture at the pinnacle of civilization. This shift began during the reign of Emperor Constantine in the 4th century. After his conversion, Constantine declared Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire, thereby merging religious authority with political unity. In the wake of Constantine's rule, the Council of Nicaea played a pivotal role in establishing Christian doctrines. This was also the period when the image of Jesus began to align more closely with Greco-Roman standards of beauty, resulting in a portrayal of Jesus with fair skin, straight hair, and European features. This was not merely an artistic decision, it was a political one that sought to align the image of Jesus with the Roman Empire's vision and cultural values. With the advent of European colonialism, the white image of Jesus spread across the globe, further entrenching racial hierarchies. As European powers sought to justify their conquests and subjugation of indigenous and African peoples, white Jesus symbolized divine authority, implying that Europeans were spiritually and morally superior. Missionaries reinforced this image, presenting it to African and indigenous populations, which in turn further established a belief that whiteness was equated with spiritual purity and divinity. Reclaiming Jesus' African heritage, a path to racial justice. The implications of Jesus' African heritage are profound, particularly for racial justice movements today. Reclaiming this part of Jesus' identity is not simply about correcting historical inaccuracies. It's an act of reclaiming spiritual and cultural identity for African and African-descended communities. The image of a black Jesus defies centuries of oppression and challenges the racial hierarchies imposed by colonialist and white supremacist ideologies. In a world where the effects of racism, colonialism, and systemic inequality remain evident, recognizing a Jesus of African descent holds revolutionary significance. For African Christians, reclaiming the image of a black Jesus represents a powerful act of cultural and spiritual empowerment. It reconnects them with a faith tradition that respects and includes their heritage, creating a sense of validation and belonging. When African-descended communities see themselves in Jesus, they experience a Jesus who embodies their struggles, joys, and humanity. Reclaiming this version of Jesus is a step toward dismantling the damaging belief that divinity is associated with whiteness. Instead, it allows for a more inclusive understanding of Christianity, one that respects and honors diversity. The lasting impact of a whitewashed Jesus, implications, and modern-day reconciliation. The deliberate erasure of Jesus' African identity had far-reaching consequences that shaped the history of race and identity within Christianity and society at large. Portraying Jesus as white promoted a belief that whiteness was closer to godliness, reinforcing a worldview that marginalized non-European communities. This whitewashed image supported the racial hierarchies that justified slavery, colonialism, and segregation, and its influence is still seen today in the lingering association of racial superiority within social and religious institutions. However, today scholars, theologians, and activists are working to challenge this historical distortion. By re-examining biblical texts, studying early Christian art, and revisiting the historical context of Jesus' life, they seek to recover an accurate and inclusive image of Jesus. This endeavor goes beyond historical correction. It addresses centuries of racial injustice and acknowledges the harm caused by the systematic erasure of African representation in Christianity. For African and African-descended Christians, reclaiming the image of a Black Jesus brings a sense of pride and a deeper connection to their faith. This reclamation reminds us that the teachings of Jesus transcend racial divisions, offering a message of love, justice, and unity for all. Recognizing Jesus' African roots is also a step toward dismantling the association between whiteness and divinity, promoting a more equitable vision of Christianity that respects all cultures and identities. The story of a Black Jesus serves as a powerful reminder that Christianity is not confined to one race, culture, or nationality. Rediscovering this narrative challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about history, power, and racial prejudice. Recognizing the African roots of Jesus enables a more inclusive and just vision of Christianity, one that rejects the distortions of white supremacy and embraces the diversity of the faith's origins. In reclaiming this aspect of Jesus' identity, we open a path toward healing the racial divisions perpetuated by whitewashed depictions and affirm the worth and dignity of all believers. Jesus, as a figure of African heritage, belongs to the whole of humanity and offers a vision of faith that transcends barriers, speaks to the oppressed, and reminds us of the shared humanity at the core of his teachings.